You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. I'm Shane O'Hare of the Geekscape Games Podcast, the #1 video game podcast on the Geekscape.network. Join myself, Derek Krenevelt, and a guest every fortnight as we discuss video game news, video game reviews, and dissections. That's Geekscape Games every 2 weeks on Geekscape.net.
The ska boom was at peak explosion level in 1996 when the world was introduced to Real Big Fish and their self-deprecating sense of humor. This week, we're joined by Christmas 365 host Dylan Lyles to discuss the summer of ska and the soundtrack to that summer, Sell Out.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever. And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a subject that I can talk without any notes. I don't need any notes for this episode. We're talking about Real Big Fish, and in specific, we're talking about Sell Out. So, Dylan, why did you choose Real Big Fish Sell Out?
All right, so I have seen Real Big Fish 20 plus times. They hold a very special place in my heart. They were my introduction to ska punk, as I'm sure they were many people's introduction to ska and ska punk. Specifically, and again, I know it's very cliche with this band, specifically seeing the movie Basketball that came out in 98, 99. My love of South Park, as Matt knows, my love of South Park, and seeing that. And while I'm younger than both of you. I was born in 92, so I didn't see it like in 98. I was not 6 years old watching Basketball, although that wouldn't be the craziest thing I saw at that age. When I finally saw Basketball and I heard this music, I was like, oh, I like this. I loved the pop punk scene that included Blink and New Found Glory, and I was like, this is cool. This is like that music with a horn section, because I wasn't that familiar with that type of music at the time. And that's when I realized that Real Big Fish was also doing spots on Nickelodeon for the Wild Thornberrys movie with their cover of Monkey Man. So it all kind of came full circle. When I was in high school, I discovered their triple disc live album that they put out. I didn't see them live till 2010. So honestly, it was kind of just a couple years before Scott left the band. So thankfully, I did get to see them with Scott. And then I've seen them countless times with Scott, countless times without Scott. But yeah, it's just a band that has a really big place in my heart. I love this band. It has influenced a lot of the music I listen to today. And they led me down that rabbit hole of, remember that awesome music you loved in Tony Hawk Pro Skater? Well, guess what? There's an entire fucking scene of that music, and this is your gateway to that.
Chris, did you notice the thing that jumped out at me is that triple disc live album that brought you into Real Big Fish has sort of a connection with how Chris and I became friends as well, because the live DVD portion of that is directed by Jonathan London of Geekscape, who introduced Chris and I.
Holy shit. It's all full circle, dude. I love it.
You know, I didn't have notes for this episode. This is one thing I do need a note for. I feel like Sell Out is one of those songs where it's Real Big Fish's biggest song, but was it technically like a hit song? I don't even know how high this peaked. I know it was on MTV a good bit, and obviously it was a popular song that you would hear on rock radio, but I don't know that this song necessarily was a hit in the way that a lot of songs on this show are hits.
Sort of. So it on the modern rock chart, it peaked at number 10, which is decent. On the Billboard, like, US airwaves, I'm not making this up, couldn't have been a more appropriate spot, but Real Big Fish landed at number 69 on the Billboard charts. That's where they peaked out at. So yeah, it's like just barely.
Right.
What's so weird to me is like, you guys brought me on to talk specifically about Sellout, but Sellout was not even the first Real Big Fish song I heard. I mean, to me, because it wasn't of the time that the album came out, Turn the Radio Off, the first song that I heard constantly, well, the two songs, because of the basketball thing, was Beer and their cover of Take On Me. Like, to me, those two songs are bigger.
I was legitimately shocked when I was putting together a list of like bands that are one-hit wonders, and I saw Real Big Fish, because I'm like, no, Take On Me definitely charted. And it didn't make any waves on any, according to the Billboard charts anyway, didn't appear on any chart.
Well, even like a couple years ago when you told me you were first thinking about doing this show,
yeah,
you were like, I want to have you on. I'm like, I want to do a ska song. I didn't specifically say Sellout because I assumed, much like you did, that one of those two other songs were also on the chart.
Also, the cover of Monkey Man was one of the only songs for them to chart in the UK.
I don't know the Monkey Man song.
I know that they put out a cover EP that was on it. Nothing But a Good Time. Talk Dirty to Me.
Tom Petty, Won't Back Down, which years ago, I believe Chris had a campaign going that we should replace the national anthem with Tom Petty's Won't Back Down.
I could support it.
Such a better national anthem. Not written by a slave owner piece of shit. Way better song. The Star Spangled Banner is a terrible song. Like,
it is awful.
It's an awful song. I mean, that's not even me. I'm not talking shit on the United States. I'm just saying it's a bad song. It shouldn't be the national anthem.
Well, I think that's appropriate. You saying like, I'm not talking shit about the United States. It goes back to the whole like
just
standing
just
argument.
the song.
It's like, I'm not talking shit about the fucking flag or America. I'm just saying we got some fucking problems, bro.
Yeah. And what I was going to say about Sellout, bringing it back to Sellout, is this is a really interesting song to be a hit song. It's catchy as hell. It's fun sounding, and it sounded a lot different than what was on the radio in the mid to late 90s. I mean, other than, this is around the same time that the Boss Stones hit. I don't know if this hit before the impression that I get or after. Has to be after. But what's interesting about this song to me is that you can't find a subject matter that's less relatable to the average person than having a ska band that is going to sign to a record label and become sellouts. There is such a small percentage of the population that can relate to the subject matter of this song. Maybe that percentage was slightly higher in the late 90s than now. It was maybe 0.0000001% of the population as opposed to 0.000000001% of the population of now. But the song's merit had to totally be on just the sound of the music and the fact that it made you feel good and happy, and not so much what the actual subject matter of the song is, because I don't know how many people can relate to that, especially now. Maybe in the 90s people could relate to that whole thing of like, you're signing to a major label, you're a sellout now. But now I don't think that anybody cares about record labels or the concept of selling out whatsoever. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I feel like the song makes very little sense. As good of a song as I still believe it is. I think we were both looking it up. So Sellout was 96.
And Impression I Get was 97.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, Real Big Fish walked so that the Boss Stones could run.
I think Where Did You Go was
no. Boss Stones was definitely...
Yeah.
This was one of those things where we were talking about, we watched the Finn McKinley thing.
I don't even know what you guys are referencing.
There's a video series called the Punk Rawk MBA, and it's this guy, Finn McKinley, and he does these video series about like what killed crunkcore, like what killed like 2000s pop punk music. And usually they're very well researched. And he did one for what killed ska punk, and it was the like least research discussion about a genre of music I've ever listened to.
To put it into context, Matt actually made me back up to watch this part again. He goes, there's a documentary about 90s ska punk called Pick It Up. I didn't watch the documentary, but I watched the trailer.
Yeah, that was the extent of his research for a YouTube video that gets millions of views, is to just watch the trailer for a documentary and be like, I've got all the information I need to make my 20-minute video about a genre of music I've openly said I don't listen to.
But credit where credit's due, rewatching that video with you is what led me to watching the How to Skank video. So,
Which is important info for anybody.
it really is.
I definitely have a storied past with Real Big Fish. So my first experience with them was someone handed me a cassette tape at Warped Tour 96 that had Everything Sucks on one side, and I think Beer was on the other side. I don't even think Sellout was on that tape. I loved it. I mean, I loved ska punk music, and I think at that point I already loved Less Than Jake and Suicide Machines and Operation Ivy and Rancid. I liked it right off the bat. I mean, these guys, they were awesome musicians. I liked the way the music sounded, and they became an inspiration for me wanting to start to play music and wanting to be good at bass and things like that. It's right there for it. When the whole ska punk third wave of ska got real huge, I was right along for the ride, and I loved it. I still love it. In 2005, I toured the entire summer with Real Big Fish, and they are a solid as hell band. Like, one of the tightest bands that I've ever played with. Definitely killed it every night. I don't know. I can't say enough nice things about Real Big Fish. I think they're a really, really great band, and it feels weird to call them a one-hit wonder. I guess they are.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, they are, to me, a zero-hit wonder. You know, because calling Sellout even a hit is even a little bit of a stretch, but I say that as a compliment to them because I think their legacy and their catalog of work is much bigger than Sellout, which I don't think is even near their best song. I think Beer is probably their best song, in my opinion.
I would agree. That Turn the Radio Off album
Is flawless from front to back.
100%.
I think what makes Real Big Fish work so much as a band, and I think that the first single being Sellout, it being their biggest song, at least on the radio, is very in keeping with them as a band in general, is that they are such a self-aware band.
Yeah. Their main purpose is to have fun. You can tell that they're having fun. Whatever they're playing, whenever they're writing, whenever they're touring, it's all about them having fun. I mean, they'll get down to business because it's a great live show. It always is, between the playing, their synchronicity, just being as one, even with, I think at this point, Aaron is the only member who's been there since the beginning.
Yeah.
I believe. But still, even with the addition of Matt, people leaving and coming in, it's still such a tight-knit group. And like I said, the purpose is to have fun. They are an amazing gateway band into this genre. Like, yes, nowadays, I'm not listening to Real Big Fish as much as I was. I still love the band. Every time they come out with a new album, new song, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to love it. But I'm much more of a fan of Less Than Jake, Suicide Machines, stuff like that is more what I listen to now. But I still love Real Big Fish, and I will always love Real Big Fish. And going back to the one-hit wonder thing, it's so funny because, Chris, like you were saying, these other songs are better. When I'm talking to people about Real Big Fish, Sellout is not the first song that gets brought up. Honestly, one of the main songs that gets brought up to me, specifically going back to that 3-disc live album, is their like 11-minute rendition of Suburban Rhythm. is the song that I feel like most people talk about because of the way that they did it.
Yeah, definitely really loved the friendship and crossover of playing on each other's songs with Goldfinger. I think those first two Goldfinger albums, well, more than just the first two Goldfinger. I love Stomping Ground too, but I just think those are such good albums, and there was so much good musical output there. And also, yeah, I think that almost to a fault a little bit on especially the first album, it's really a lot of songs about being a ska band. And
yeah,
it's really specific, and what's funny about it is I was in that very, very, very small percentage of people who felt like they could relate to those songs in one way or another because I played in bands that had some ska influence or whatever. And so I could put myself in those shoes when they're singing about like, oh, what would I do if I had that opportunity to sell? And like, it's also funny because it's also kind of irrelevant now, the whole thing of like signing to a record label and instantaneously like, oh, you're famous now, you signed to a record label. That's not something that really happens anymore. I think just the whole game has changed and a lot of the themes are kind of irrelevant almost now. But it doesn't change the heart behind the music. It doesn't change the way that the music makes you feel, regardless of what they're singing about. It always makes you feel good. I think Real Big Fish is a band that will always be around, and why shouldn't they be? You know?
Exactly. And I think that's what keeps them going is that they are so fun. And another thing that keeps them going is their fucking work ethic. Because I think that's a band that maybe stops touring. I mean, obviously in the pandemic it's a little different, but pre-pandemic, Real Big Fish maybe took like a month off of touring and then was touring constantly.
And use that time to usually record an album.
Exactly. And I mean, constantly touring to a point where I stopped going to see them. Not because I was like, fuck Real Big Fish, but it was like, okay, I've seen this show. I know what songs they're going to play.
They do what you kind of want to see from a band that's been doing this for so many years, which is like, they'll pepper in one or two new songs, but for the most part, they're like, we know that you're here because of these like 3 or 4 albums meant a lot to you.
Yep. And I'm telling you, just wait till we cover the Real Big Fish Christmas EP for Christmas 365 because I'm about it.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rawk MBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media podcast network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
Hi, this is Krista Makes, host of Krista Makes a Podcast. The theme of the podcast is songwriting. Each week, my musical guest picks a defining song from their career to discuss, critique, and analyze during the show. So please join me for some fun and insight into some of the greatest songs ever written and recorded. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
I was going to ask you if there was a Real Big Fish Christmas song, but I guess apparently there's a whole EP.
That Christmas EP has I Just Want to Celebrate, which is a great message where like, I don't care what holiday you celebrate. I just want to have fun. Skank for Christmas, which he doubles down at the end. He's like, I'm talking about the dance. There's a Carol of the Beers. Where it's beer.
You aren't selling me on this at all.
It doesn't sound particularly good.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very
saying
good.
it's great. I'm saying it'll be fun to cover.
saying it exists.
Some of the bad things are the best things to
Look,
cover.
I mean, we're going to do episodes on all the different ICP Christmas albums at one point or another, so...
There are multiple ICP Christmas albums?
Songs. There are not
Okay.
multiple albums. There are enough songs on different albums and EPs that could probably compile.
I love ICP. I just lost track of them after like the late 90s, you know, other than a song here and there that I would hear. But I'm definitely down with the Clowns still. I haven't kept up with the music.
Good choice, dude. I will go on record, and I have gone on record saying that ICP after 2004 does not exist to me. Because they put out Hell's Pit, and then Jay completely forgot how to rap on beat. But if you want to talk Twisted, I will talk Twisted till the day I die. And
I don't get into the ICP affiliate groups. I don't
The
get
multiverse
into.
of ICP.
No, I don't.
Hey, now,
I don't.
I will get offended if you guys sit here and say that Twisted is just an affiliate. They've got some bops. They do not associate with the Clowns anymore, and I'm for it.
Whoa.
I hope that people finally give them their just dessert.
You know, hey, one thing I wanted to talk about, there is this, I don't know if I want to call it myth or belief that like after 1998 or 99 or something that ska just died. That was the end of ska, man. Well, you know what that was the end of? That was the end of all the poser ska bands. But but the fucking real bands, Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, Mighty Mighty Boss Stones, you know, the bands that, you know, Rancid, whatever, all the real bands kept it real, kept a huge following up until now, and whatever, there was that little burst, but all the Save Ferrises disappeared. All the bands that like were popular for a minute and then moved on to the next thing, they're gone and it's over, and as far as I'm concerned, that's good. But the bands that killed it, the bands that kept it real and were awesome, are still around today, still making great music, still touring, still have a career regardless of that third wave boom
And
of the
hey,
90s.
as soon as you throw shots, and I apologize for this, as soon as you throw shots at fake Ferris, I'm all for this.
I mean,
recording,
they suck.
so.
They suck. Like, well, I mean, I like their like Mistaken song or whatever, but like that, we did an episode about Come On Eileen, which, okay, Come On Eileen is fine, but I'd rather just listen to the original.
Yeah.
And then the rest of that, I listened to the rest of that album, which surprisingly, I liked like every ska band, but I wasn't into it at the time. And I listened to it now and I'm like, none of these songs even do anything for me. And that band seemed to have formed, blown up off a cover, changed their sound by the next album, and like, so that band is meaningless to me. Whereas like, Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake, you brought Suicide Machines, like all the good bands, like one way or another, they kept it going, and I think that's awesome. And styles of music are going to have their moment or whatever, but the artists that are great from that style are going to keep going, and Real Big Fish is one of those bands.
There's a huge ska scene still. It's just not on the radio. I mean, I was just playing a bunch of music for Matt on our drive to get lunch. Like, there are a bunch of ska bands out of the UK right now still, like Popes of Chillytown, The Skints. I mean, there is a huge ska scene that I can't stand when people are like, oh, I can't wait for the new ska revival. Like, it's happening. Yeah. It's just not on the radio. But none of that music's on the radio.
And this is something that this is a much deeper conversation, right?
Yeah.
But the stuff that is popular ultimately ends up being what is like pop culture as a whole pushing on us regardless.
Yeah.
So like you could know maybe 5 people in your entire life that enjoy, like that really truly enjoy like what we would describe as like bro country.
Yeah.
But if the record companies want everyone to be into bro country, it's going to be in commercials. It's going to be in this, that, like the ska bands never went away. Just the attention being given to them went away.
And that's the same thing with country. There are amazing country artists out there still right now. But what's being pushed is that bro country, that Florida Georgia Line, that Luke Bryan stuff. It's not the same. Like, listen to a guy by the name of Colter Wall. Amazing country artist. If you want to go darker, Amigo the Devil. He plays country music. Yeah. And he's amazing at it. There are many different artists. I don't subscribe to that idea that like, oh, guitar music is dead or rock music is dead or whatever. No, it's just not what's playing on the radio. And really, it's 2021.
Who's listening to the radio for that? Yeah.
The problem with any style of music is that people can get burnt out on a particular style of music when there's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a band, and then it's just like, okay, enough. And the example that I can think of is like The Used came out, and I loved that first Used album, and the second one, like, it's great. It's like aggressive, but it's still melodic, and it's heavy, yet it's still poppy. It's this great style of music. Really, really loved it. But then there's all these bands trying to emulate that, but not doing it as good, to the point where it's just like, oh my God, I do not want to see another Warped Tour band on this stage screaming and then singing. Like, it was just torture, it just became, and then that kind of faded away or whatever. It's the same thing that could happen with ska. Is like, once you have the bands that are great at it, but once there's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, then it's not, if people aren't bringing something unique or original to the style of music, then people are going to get burned out on it real quick. And they talked about, we just had him on the podcast, but Taylor talked about in the Pick It Up documentary is like, by the end of that boom, ska music was being used in the background of like pizza roll commercials and toy store commercials. And like, then at that point, it just sounds like, I don't know, it just doesn't even sound like real music or something. And then, people can get burned out on it. But the real music with real emotion behind it, which Real Big Fish had that.
I would go to bat a million times that I think that Drunk Again off Cheer Up is like one of the best songs I've ever heard.
And they can change it up like that, right? Especially with that record is a lot of those songs on there, while they may sound happy, are not that happy.
Yeah. They hit a part in their later career where their songs got real fucking dark.
Dude, one of the scariest moments I've ever had is I fell asleep while listening to We're Not Happy Till You're Not Happy. Have you listened to the last song on that record? If you listen to the last song on that record, the song ends, but there's like 10 minutes left of the album. And what happens is like you're listening and all of a sudden you'll just start hearing this screaming. Like it is just, I think it's like just Aaron just screaming death metal vocals into the microphone. And then there'll be like a creepy clip of like just some singing. And then Scott starts singing a song. It's real weird. Like I implore both of you to listen to the last song on We're Not Happy Till You're Not Happy.
And it's Your Guts, I Hate Them is the last song on it.
Yes. So that song ends, which is a fantastic song, but 2 minutes of silence goes by. And then screaming, screaming, dude. It freaked me out the first time I heard it because I fell asleep listening to the record.
So that happened. Chris, have you ever had that happen when you fall asleep to an album and the hidden track startles you awake?
Yeah, I remember that when I listened to CDs and stuff, which I'm sure you still do, Matt. but the creepiest last song on an album, which I might put it on after this podcast, but I don't know if I want to ruin my day, is, did you guys happen to like the Pearl Jam Vitalogy album?
Oh, yeah. That's a creepy fucking ending to an album.
Dude, it's called Hey Foxy Mop Handle Mama, That's Me, is like the name of the last track. And it is the creepiest song. And the only thing that I think can rival it in creepiness kind of is when I was a kid, I had the cassette single of Sophie B. Hawkins' Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover. Great song, by the way. The B-side of the Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover thing was some song where she just talks about Hansel and Gretel having sex with each other. It was the side B of Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover. I miss the hidden tracks. With the rise of streaming, there's no more hidden tracks. I know one I really liked was on the 9 Inch Nails Broken EP. I forget how many songs were on that. There was maybe like 6 or 8 or something, but the CD would count all the way up to 99.
So I know Korn's Follow the Leader did like some like muffledness for like the first 12 tracks, and the actual album doesn't start till track 13. Typo Negative did it like 3 or 4 albums where like I think October Rust literally is like, it's like skipping and the beginning of it, and it's really fun to listen to on vinyl because you're like, damn it, something's fucked up with the record. But it's like, and then Peter Steele in the most Peter Steele voice is like, I hope you liked our little prank there. Now enjoy Typo Negative's October Rust.
Nice.
Chris, you've seen Gremlins 2, right?
I only recently found out about Gremlins 2, and I can't even remember why. Maybe, did you guys do a horror movie night about it or something?
We did do a horror movie night on it, yeah.
It has nothing to do with Gremlins 1. It's like a parody of it, basically.
It's kind of a parody of it. There was a point where if you saw Gremlins 2 in the theaters, the Gremlins rip out the film from the projector.
Yeah.
And they have to go into the movie theater and get Hulk Hogan to yell at the Gremlins to start the movie up again. They did something similar on the VHS tape where the Gremlins distorted the tape, and they had to start putting a warning sticker on the tapes because so many people were returning the tapes to the video store thinking it was broken.
For the VHS, like they would have fixed it and put like Randy Savage in there. We're not Hulkamaniacs in this household.
No, I mean, looking back, I can't believe I used to root for Hulk back in the day. Like, what an asshole! And Randy Savage is so cool. Like, I like him. Be a man, Hogan.
If you go to like, even if you go back to that storyline of the mega powers colliding, like, I would have had a problem with Hulk fucking with Miss Elizabeth as well.
Yeah,
so,
right? That's when I watched it. That's literally when I watched wrestling, was like that WrestleMania 5. And I couldn't even buy the pay-per-view. I wasn't allowed. So I just read about it in WWF magazine and stuff. And I was a little kid, but that's like when I cared about wrestling. And I look back, I'm like, why did I root for Hogan there?
Yeah, he's such a douche. And now we find out he's racist too?
Yeah,
Jesus.
How the fuck do you guys still watch wrestling?
So let me just say, I am an avid not so, I don't even want to say avid right now because the pandemic's kind of took me out of the whole thing. But I will watch like AEW and like New Japan stuff, like a lot of indie stuff as well. WWE, I get all of my information post TV show. So I will listen to like podcasts on my drive of what's going on. I will stay informed, but watching, no. Now I have friends who will sit there, I'm in a group chat, and they'll just sit there and bitch all night. And I will constantly say, you could be doing anything else with your time right now. So have you seen the JCW DVDs?
No.
From back in the day? The JCW was Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
I remember it. I kind of remember it. Yeah, I really do like when, whether it's movies or TV or whatever, does things that messes with people. I mean, obviously there's the famous Andy Kaufman, and his special making the screen loop so people thought something was wrong with their TV. That's pretty amazing.
So Real Big Fish.
Yeah. So wait. This is leading me to did the Aquabats have a hit at all?
No.
Did the Super Rat hit the charts?
I don't think
because if it does, I want to come back.
I mean, they end up creating a kid show, which I think is an amazing thing to do with your notoriety. I think that's such a creative way to go about capitalizing on your success. Is just, I think that's more important than ever. I'm always having conversations like this when it comes to music and like, okay, we live in a time of streaming now, so you're not going to sell albums and you can't rely on anything. Like even in the mid 2000s, you could rely on, we got on this compilation CD and that's going to like expose us to a lot of people. Well, that's not a thing anymore. And there's just a few gatekeepers who decide who gets on the big playlists and stuff. If you don't feel like messing with that stuff in the world, you have to carve your own path and do creative things to make people care. More than ever, you have to use your creativity and not just rely on like, I wrote a good song and hope that good song gets out there, but using your brain and using your creativity to like do something original to make people hear you. I think that's more important than ever. And I think that's cool. The Aquabats did that.
Honestly, I could sit here and talk like ska music all fucking day.
So to wrap it up here, I think, do we even need to go around? I mean, we're all going to give Real Big Fish the thunder. And
hell yeah.
Real Big Fish is a great band. I hope they stay a band forever. If someone, I kind of feel like even if you don't like their music, if you don't at least respect them, you're an asshole. Because they've been around forever. They're phenomenal musicians. I know they've had a lot of lineup changes, but I've never seen them sound bad. Aaron Barrett, as the band leader, has put together great musicians all along the way, written a lot of great songs, nothing but respect for them. And if you're going to talk shit, then you're an asshole.
Exactly.
And if you're going to talk shit, I will promise you that I listen to way cooler music than you do, and you're an asshole. And that's all there is to it.
100%. And if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to Real Big Fish in years, I would honestly go listen to Real Big Fish now because it's just as good as you loved it back in the day. They literally just put out an album like either last year or the year before, and it's great. If you're wondering where ska is gone, ska is still around. Ska is still alive. Like just type in, just Google modern ska bands, and you will be like just hit in the face with a plethora of bands. It's still a thriving scene. It's just not on the radio. But you know what? Fuck the radio.
Yeah, man, just turn the radio off.
Why is he right when I say goodnight to you and you're never there?
This has been One Hit Thunder. One Hit Thunder is hosted by Chris Afalios of the bands Punchline, Pack, and Another Cheetah, and produced by Matt Kelly of Geekscape.net. Underneath me, you're hearing Why Is He Right off Punchline's album Action. If you have any interest in podcasting, visit WeKnowPodcasting.com for how Matt and Chris can make your show sound as professional as possible. Let us know your thoughts on the show by emailing onehitthunderpodcast@gmail.com and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app. Tune in next week for another episode of One Hit Thunder.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.
Hi, podcast listeners. I'm Carol Costello, a former CNN anchor and national correspondent. This January, I'm launching a podcast about one of the first cases I ever covered as a journalist. It's one that stuck with me all of these years, the one that buried itself under my skin and stayed put. It's a true crime series about an amazing woman named Phyllis Cottle, who defied torture and death and brought a fierce rage to the quest to find her attacker. Carol Costello Presents Blind Rage is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and signature title of the Killer Podcast Network. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Discover more great true crime and paranormal programming at killerpodcast.com.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.